Going to the 7th floor. 7th floor. 7th floor. Going up. 7th floor. 7th floor. One more. One more for the 7th floor. Say it now. Get in further. Squeeze in. It's giving your university kind of a bad name, and a lot of the California universities are going to stop. UA and Vatican come here. We're finally on our own. First and Apache coming.
out here. Some folks call me John, and some folks call me Paul. Mostly I go by the name of the Pope. Now, I already bought off the U of A, and so I'm offering all you hippies some more money to get out of here. Here's $5,000 for you. There's $5,000 for you. I want you hippies out of here.
Hi there. Boy, that was fun. I'm Andy Caffrey, and you probably already know that. And I've been an activist for a very, very long time. In fact, my whole adult life has been a life of activism. Ooh, that's kind of crazy. And I've run for office, for Congress 3 times, and I was the first Democratic presidential candidate of 2016. Before Bernie came along, I was calling for an electoral revolution, which I've actually been calling for since 2006. And that's as a result of where we're at right now. What should we be doing now? So my TV show here is going to be looking at what we should be doing as activists. What are effective ways of doing things? We can talk about things I've done in the past, like what you just watched. That was 1993, protest to save Mount Graham. Mount Graham is a sky island mountain that juts out, goes about 10,000 feet out of the desert in southeastern Arizona. You know that lower corner of Arizona where you always wondered, is there anything there? There's nothing there on the map. Well, there is Mount Graham, and it goes through, I think, 5 climate zones from the desert all up to an alpine climate zone on the top, and in the top is the endangered Mount Graham red squirrel. Now, this is also sacred mountain to the San Carlos Apache. So Earth First, boy, one of the earliest Earth First campaigns, early, mid-1980s, was a coalition of activists from Tucson and Phoenix mostly, and I guess Prescott and other places, working with the San Carlos Apache to save their sacred mountain and to keep the University of Arizona, to keep them from putting their telescopes up there on the mountain. So I also have several videos about the action, which I will be showing in future programs. I met Sheriff Richard Mack. Do you remember Sheriff Mack? Sheriff Mack is the coolest cop I've ever had to deal with in a protest. He was amazing, and we were very friendly. And then he was a sheriff for, is it Graham County? Somebody can probably tell me that. He had a Supreme Court battle over the Brady Bill, and he won. He won against the Brady Bill because the Brady Bill required, I guess, doing all of this gun registration type stuff at the county level, but they didn't give the counties any money for it. So he was suing, saying, hey, we're this little county with a tiny sheriff's office, and we don't have money for that, and he won. And then he became this huge leader of one of the militia groups called Oath Keepers, and he goes around talking about how anybody who's taken the oath of office.
Above and around were marksmen in sniper positions. A retired Arizona sheriff worried about what was going to happen next.
We were actually strategizing to put all the women up at the front. If they're going to start shooting, it's going to be women that are going to be televised all across the world getting shot by these rogue federal officers.
Actually, it's very, very similar, I guess, for law enforcement officers and people in the military. I know I took it when I went to Annapolis briefly in 1975, and even as a candidate for Congress, when you go in and submit your paperwork, they have you take the oath of office. And I've got a video of me doing that in 2012, I guess it was. So anyway, we had an Earth First Round River Rendezvous on Mount Graham in 1993, and we did an action up there on the mountain, and then we came down from the hill, and a lot of the Tucson people had been doing activism at the campus, and they organized that occupation of the president's office that you saw. And it was Robert Hoyt there, oh gosh, I can't think of his name. Starts with a J. Were the two guys singing that version of Neil Young's Ohio for Mount Graham. And that was just loads of fun. And that's one of the things that allowed us to do radical activism, is that we actually had a culture. We weren't just, like right now, I think a lot of activism, the culture is more like watching MSNBC. You might notice down there that I'm in recovery from MSNBC. It used to be that if you watch Fox News, you'd feel dumber afterward. And somebody was just writing that they felt dumber after watching Sean Hannity. But I feel that way after watching most MSNBC shows, especially if I watch it all day long, which I do sometimes. I definitely feel dumber. So another motivation for doing this show is hopefully we can explore the news that matters to you and to me. A lot of these online TV shows like Jimmy Dore and the Young Turks and Kyle Kulsinski and David Pakman, they grab shots from MSNBC or CNN or Fox News, and then they comment on them, and that's all well and good, and I'll do that once in a while. But really, as an activist and as a unique politician, everything I do as an activist or as a politician starts with what's going on in reality. And that was the idea, of course, behind Earth First, that no matter what issue we're dealing with, you got to look at the impact on the Earth first. Any kind of physical development, property development, any kind of new product, that kind of consciousness then expanded, like with Apple products. People think about sweatshop labor and think about the impact on the economies of third world nations. That's all really great. It's really advanced. And I've always looked to find who was doing the best work for the issues that matter to me. And so I guess starting in college, David Brower, who politicized the Sierra Club. He saved the Grand Canyon and Point Reyes National Seashore and Dinosaur National Monument and the North Cascades. He did a lot of media work, and he was one of the first people to turn environmental activism from something where you pay your $20 to the organization Audubon Society, Wilderness Society, Sierra Club, and then they hire lobbyists and scientists who would then go to Congress and or a local government or to a corporation and present the information. Well, that's now shifted to being what I call grassroots activism. It's kind of funny, we think of environmentalism as grassroots from the beginning, or, at least from post-World War II. I don't know about during the era of John Muir, although I guess he was sort of the ultimate grassroots environmentalist, and certainly, I guess, the first Earth Firster. But in Earth First, a lot of people who had been involved in the Yippies or had been involved in these environmental groups as lobbyists for them, and people who were involved in the anti-nuclear power movement, started to do direct actions, to go to the actual place where the damage is taking place and just keep them from doing it. So that was the major focus of Earth First, although Earth Firsters, and the reason I got involved is I found that along with people like David Brower, who did become an Earth Firster and worked with us on many campaigns.
I've been described as a John Muir reincarnate.
That just the experts weren't going to do it, that we had to do it. The Sierra Club after Brower left. Brower actually left, by the way, and he was fired. And he started Friends of the Earth, and then he was fired from Friends of the Earth. I think one of them for being against nuclear weapons, and that was too radical for these groups. And anyway, then he started Earth Island Institute, and Earth Island Institute was the most radical and decentralized large environmental organization. They put out their monthly magazine, Earth Island Journal, and the first time I got published in an environmental journal was in Earth Island. It was great. But what Brower did at that point is he'd have this office in San Francisco with a lot of these different little cubby holes, kind of like my little place right here. And he'd find these precocious young people who wanted to save dolphins or save rivers or save anything. And he'd give them one of these little cubby holes and give them the phone to use and a mailing list, and then they'd write stories that would appear in the Earth Island Journal, and things like the Rainforest Action Network, was it International Dams Network, all kinds. I mean, I'm sure well over 50 different groups were started, and so that was the heart of what Earth Island Institute was about. They did other things too. They did some lobbying, and they certainly supported scientists. But by that time, which was the mid-1980s, we also started to work with the indigenous people in the rainforest countries. So that was another thing. A lot of these other groups, National Wildlife Foundation, they were just working at that UN level, or perhaps with the political rulers of these rainforest countries. But we really, wanted to work with the indigenous people. We recognized from our own endeavors, our own spiritual pursuits, our own search to live a more ecological life, to eat organic foods. We saw the wisdom in these people, and we also recognized that it wasn't just, even though we said Earth first, it wasn't just Earth. And in fact, Randy Hayes, who was one of the two main co-founders with Mike Rozelle, who was one of the 5 main founders of Earth First, he and I were both inspired by a man named Doug Boyd. And Doug Boyd, who I'll tell you about in another episode when I start reading from his book, was the author of the book Rolling Thunder. And Rolling Thunder was one of the first sort of medicine men in the western U.S. who started to really work with the hippies, and a lot of the hippie sense of how to live in a sense of wisdom and with a sense of being immersed in nature, not being on top of it. He was a really amazing guy, and he was a real medicine man. He could create rain. It was amazing. And so he had a little camp out near Carlin, Nevada called Meditante, and a movie was made about him called Billy Jack. So Billy Jack is about Rolling Thunder, and except it's Rolling Thunder's arm that gets bit by all the snakes, rattlesnakes. Okay, I'll tell you about that right now. So there's this scene where Billy Jack is going out on his vision quest, and he has to go into this cave with all these rattlesnakes and let them bite him, like 10 or 20 of them. And so for that scene, you see a close-up of his arm, but it's actually Rolling Thunder's arm actually getting bitten by all those rattlesnakes. So that's pretty amazing. Well, anyway, Doug Boyd wrote the book Rolling Thunder, which is my favorite book. And so in a later episode, when I start doing my audio books programs, I'll be reading from Rolling Thunder. It's a really amazing book. And so Doug later on became a teacher, and I was working at an event center called Shared Visions in Berkeley, and we put on events with Doug, and Doug called himself a resourcer. Doug studied all kinds of spiritual teachers, mostly coming from long traditions, like Swami Rama, traditions that go back thousands, maybe even with indigenous people, tens of thousands of years, who knows. And he would try to look at, well, what's really going on here? Because a lot of these people, we listen to medicine people, and it might sound bizarre to us, but that's because we're so literally minded. What you have to do is understand the mind of the people, of the culture, out of which comes that healer, and you have to recognize the experience that it creates for people who live in those traditions. So anyway, there were a number of us. You might remember the Rainbow Warrior concept. Well, a bunch of us that's for real. I can assure you, there are Rainbow Warriors, and we call ourselves Eco Warriors. And it basically just means that we see this threat to our planet that's so dire as being really the most foundational aspect of our existence. It's at that spiritual level. People might say God is at basic level, or consciousness, and that's the same kind of thing for traditional peoples. They may not have a concept of old man God sitting up there looking down on us, but their actions come out of a kind of spiritual or consciousness grounded view of being alive. So Earth Firsters generally attract people, other people who have those kind of inclinations, and that's really what informs people to do really bold, direct actions like climbing 180 feet up in a redwood tree and sitting there on a closet door for weeks at a time, or in the case of Julia Butterfly, for 2 years. And I worked on Julia's sit. I broke her story nationally, so one of these days I'll tell you about her. I guess she was just in town a couple of days ago, but most of my friends don't really like her anymore. And so I know a lot of people didn't go to that. But anyway, there are a lot of people that you've never heard of who are amazing people, and in the 80s I shot a lot of video of these Earth First people. And that became really the focus of my life from 1988 to 1994. And I've got 400 hours of video. And that video, I made little videos like the one I showed you right there to show activists. I made a longer video for Redwood Summer when I did a road show. And so what happened with that is that Greg King and Daryl Cherney and Mokai and Larry Evans and other people put together road shows to get people to join the efforts to save Headwaters Forest, the last large stand of old-growth redwoods outside of parks left in the world. And Greg was a fantastic photographer, still is, and he put together a slideshow. And then Daryl and Mokai were musicians, and they wrote these kinds of songs, like you heard, that version of Ohio. And they would build their road show around this kind of combination of music and talking about the issue and then the slideshow. And so when Redwood Summer came along, I had invented Earth First action video and had just gone out on the actions and shot stuff just to document it. And put together this Redwood Summer road show with Mary Liz Thompson and Modoc Pearson. And I took that on a 10,000-mile road show around the country. So I come at video from a point of view of wanting to be an archivist to preserve what these amazing people have done, because I've been so inspired by the greatest leaders, organizers, inspiring figures that I could find in my life, and then lending my support to their projects. And a lot of those people are gone or have disappeared. And I look around now at this new movement from the electoral revolution or the political revolution and all these grassroots people to all the Black Lives Matter and all the fantastic work that the women are doing right now at Chuck Grassley's office. And I want to get this back out to you folks, because I shot the video because I found these people so inspiring. So I'm hoping that in an environment in which we don't have a lot of leaders anymore that we can look to, and the ones that we could, like Ralph Nader, are sort of tainted by, in his case with that Green Party battle, and, half the people or more hate him, whereas before that everyone I knew loved him. Or Cesar Chavez was another one who was just widely loved, and growing up I just thought that I would be like those people. So that's what this show is going to be about. It's about what do we do? It's about how do we feel? How do we get through all of this? How do we do smart, strategic activism that actually accomplishes what we want to get done? And so I'll be doing a combination of talking with you and showing you videos of actions and more video of music. And then starting tomorrow, I'll show you how we're going to do the Skype thing. I can actually have 5 people call in on Skype at the same time to me. So you might want to, if you want to do that, you might want to go to Skype and search. I don't even know what my Skype phone number is. Search for that and send me whatever it is to connect. And then when we do the shows after this, you can call in just like Tom Hartman or any other radio show. We can have conversations. So I hope to do that with you. I'd like to talk a lot about the Green Party, about independent third parties about whether Bernie should run as a Democrat or as an independent. There are a lot of these people like Jimmy Dore who are just ragging on the idea of him running as a Democrat. And I understand that. I'm completely in sync with him regarding how corrupt the Democratic Party is. But I've also helped start two parties. I helped start the Green Party in 1985. And before that, the first Green Party in the U.S., the Citizens Party, in 1980. We ran environmentalist Barry Commoner and Native American woman LaDonna Harris for president and vice president against Reagan and Jimmy Carter back then. So I have experience working in two third parties, and it's not that easy. And I've run for Congress as a registered Democrat. So without becoming a Democrat. Please don't ever call me a Democrat. You can say he's registered as a Democrat or he's running as a Democrat if that's what I'm doing. But I'm a green. I'm an ecotopian green. I'm a Fundi green. I actually worked with the founders of the German Green Party, Petra Kelly, and my hero Rudolf Barrow. And we'll talk about Fundi greens versus Rialo greens. Or actually, I'll do that right now. So when the German Greens started around 1979, there were two groups. There were those you would consider like the environmental Democrats in Congress. They're total mainstream in terms of supporting a corporate society and not into the idea of any kind of revolution. And those would be the Realos, R-E-A-L-O. Or the realists. That's the idea that they're the realists, right? Like the Hillary. It's kind of like the Hillary-Bernie thing, The ones who are sort of like Hillary. Hillary, she says she cares about global warming, although she supports fracking. So it would be the Greens that were definitely against nuclear power and against destruction of rainforest, and probably cared a lot about third world peoples, because Europeans are so much more advanced, the average Europeans, compared to the average Americans who, can you imagine MSNBC covers nothing outside of like Washington, D.C. They might do a demo or two, a Black Lives Matter or a pipeline demo every now and then. But you watch BBC or Al Jazeera or RT, and suddenly there's a whole new world that opens up. You learn about what's going on in Hungary and Poland. Oh my God, the fascists are taking over there. And these are important things. So anyway, the Europeans, the Realos worked on that kind of stuff. But the Fundis, or the fundamentalists, were the ones who are like the Earth Firsters, who think we have to really look at industrial capitalism, especially, the aspect of industrialism, because a lot of the social democratic nations of Europe and other parts of the world are still industrial. So socialism, that's why I wouldn't call myself a socialist. I'm a decentralist, a bioregionalist. I'm an ecocentrist as opposed to an anthropocentrist person. And I do think we have to have a revolution to oust the plutocrats from power and put us in. So just like the Fundi Greens, we have to figure out now how to get elected, except all they had to do is get 5% of the vote, and they'd get 5% of the seats. We have to get 50% plus one vote. So it is a lot harder. And so I'd like to just share with you my experiences of running as a Democrat and why I chose to do that, and the problems, and I say this in a constructive way, the problems of running for office as a Green at the federal level. So anyways, that's the kind of stuff I'd really like to have as an interactive thing where you call into the show and talk about it. And then there'll just be fun stuff too. I have a number of people I've already interviewed. John Rachel, who is the original author of CFAR, the Contract for American Renewal, and I ran my last congressional campaign strongly promoting CFAR, which is 11 very specific things that the candidates promised to put into legislation within 6 months of taking power. So I have a long conversation with him and some really interesting stuff about Libya. Libya was almost the most advanced in terms of standard of living country in Africa. And John knows all about it and has a lot of information for you. It's going to blow your mind. You know, we have this image of Gaddafi being this Hitlerian figure, and oh, wasn't it great that we got rid of Gaddafi? You know, and Hillary Clinton laughs about it. But no, we destroyed the most advanced nation in Africa, and now they have markets where they sell slaves. Can you believe that? It's horrible, horrible. So anyway, I'm a Fundi Green, even though I might put on Democrats' clothing from now and again. And also, I'm thinking about putting myself out there as a Green and Democrat who should be Bernie's vice presidential running mate, as a way of bridging the gap between the two. So that's something else we'll talk about. I want your opinion on that. I definitely have not decided on that at all. It's very, very hard to be a candidate. I mean, you have to imagine, what are all the things that all those campaign managers and volunteers and consultants, all the things that they do. Well, all of us who are running for office pretty much have to do all of that ourselves. It's very hard to get, without money, to get much in the way of volunteers. So it's not an easy thing, but if there's anything I can do to help make it easier or more effective for other people who are running for office, man, I can dig that. Okay, well, I'm going to look at the comments here. I can't really read them with my glasses on. Let's see here. Hey, Robin. Hey, Ed. Hey, Carrie. Thank you for the birthday wishes. It is my age, the memory thing? You love Rachel Maddow? Well, I'm not dissing Rachel. I think she's I think she's kind of isolated, you know. It blows me away that she's from the Bay Area, and she seems to, never have worked with any of the activist groups in the Bay Area. I remember when I first moved to Berkeley, the first protest I went to in 1983, 82 or 83, Floyd Westerman was singing songs. It was a anti-intervention in Central America rally, either Nicaragua or El Salvador. I was very involved in those campaigns. I was a canvasser for CISPAS. And so Floyd Westerman was one of the first of these great eco-activist musicians. You know, he's the guy who was in Dances with Wolves. What's his, Floyd? Somebody knows. What's his indigenous name? Red Crow? Floyd? Anyway, the culture just reeks of grassroots revolution, and Rachel doesn't seem to have that. She just seems to be someone who went to school and studied politics from books. So, you know, I don't have any kind of anger toward her. I just think that what she does is inadequate. And as a journalist, I can't stand her because she will take 15 minutes of a segment before she even tells you what the segment is about. It drives me crazy. I have no idea which of the things she's saying I'm supposed to retain because I don't know what it's about. You know, I kind of joke that, you know, she probably says, well, why say something in one paragraph when you can say it in 10 pages? I think she could be a little bit more concise, and then she could get some more information in, news information about things going on environmentally and in other parts of the world. But, you know, she does some great stuff, and as do all of those people at MSNBC. They have great experts on, these attorneys, and when they do have, you know, some environmentalists on or some indigenous people on, they're good folks. But, that's weird.
Now a new day must begin. 'Cause to die for yourself, for the truth that you pollute, for the life that you have cost, for the good you prostitute, and for all that we have lost. 'Cause to die begin. Custer died for yourself. Custer died for yourself. Custer died for yourself. Now a new day must begin. Custer died for yourself. Custer died.
Something a second. Yes. May I say something a second? We've come to the mountain. We've invoked the spirits. We've had a very powerful time. The decisions that control when and how this gate comes down are not up here. The decisions that control when and how this gate come down come from offices of people in Tucson, Arizona.
Tucson, Arizona.
We have done amazing things today. You have no idea. We have come here peacefully as messengers. We have. We've done amazing things. We've come a long way. We've made a lot of ground. This is the battle of this mountain. They've done up here what they're going to do. We need to start tearing that thing down. And the way we do that is demand of our elected officials. This was put in by greedy people and ambitious people in previous political offices. We have the power. I can see that. We came up the road. We have amazing power. Let's take this power to the right spot. We came here for power. Let's take it back down to the city.
Because we're praying to Mother Earth and the Father Sky, and they'll hear us because we feel strong about what we're doing, and to pray tonight and to feel strong tomorrow will be more power to us again. And it don't matter what religion you are or however you pray, as long as you pray, and if it's true to you, it'll be true to Him too, and He'll listen to you. He'll feel your pain. He'll feel your strength in your mind, and He'll give you wisdom. He'll make your heart strong. And we take like a minute or two, and everyone just pray.
She'll be riding Sheriff Mack when she comes. She'll be riding Sheriff Mack. She'll be riding Sheriff Mack.
She doesn't know that by now?
Well, she knows it. Are we there yet?
Excuse me. So, Sheriff, did you expect to be carrying somebody down the mountain today?
Not really, but I didn't expect any of this to happen today.
So how do you feel about it? You feel good?
I feel keeping my word is more important than getting tired.
That's good. It's good to hear something honorable from a law enforcement officer.
I hope I'm still saying that a mile from now.
I hope so too.
We've got to stop to the
to fill the fucking scope of blow dry our head. No compromise. No compromise. No compromise. No compromise. No compromise. No compromise in the defense of Mother Earth. So we know there's gonna come a time when the tables will be turned. What will we say to answer for these crimes and for our lessons ever learned? What's the telephone Earth first, please, Wolf? Come on. All native species of the earth. The land is yours by right of birth. But the corporations can't stand to see the way that we were meant to be. Our sisters and brothers are dying every day. While we drink our coffee, look the other way. Every day, no compromise. 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 No compromise in defense of Mother Earth. Earth first. So how do we make up for our mistakes? The answer is whatever it takes. Never pain is mightier than the sword, but a monkey wrench could a whole lot more. Revolution is just around the bend. Will Mother Earth be your foe or your friend? No compromise. 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 No compromise in defense of Mother Earth. Earth first. Earth first. Earth first. Earth first. No compromise. Earth first. Earth first. Earth first. No compromise in defense of Mother Earth. Earth first.
Right. Remember, despair is only a path to empowerment.
Earth first, smash the scopes! 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 Earth first, smash the scopes!
This monkey wrench of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This monkey wrench of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This monkey wrench of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Old growth forest, in the old growth forest, I'm gonna let it shine. In the old growth forest, I'm gonna let it shine. In the old growth forest, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. I'm back in the desert. I'm back in the desert. I'm gonna let it shine. I'm back in the desert. I'm gonna let it shine. I'm back in the desert. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Shine now. This monkey wrench of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This monkey wrench of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This monkey wrench of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Way up on the gram, I'm gonna let it shine. Way up on the gram, I'm gonna let
enter mine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Woo! Way up on Mount Graham,
I'm gonna let it shine. Way up on Mount Graham, I'm gonna let it shine. Way up on Mount Graham, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
at that fucking Pope scope,
I'm gonna let it shine. At that fucking Pope scope, I'm gonna let it shine. At that fucking Pope scope, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
at the U of A,
At the U of A, I'm gonna let it shine.
tomorrow,
At the U of A, I'm gonna let it shine.
and the day after,
U of A, I'm gonna let it shine.
until they break them down.
Shine, let it shine.
Here we go. This monkey wrench of mine,
I'm gonna let it shine. This monkey wrench of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This monkey wrench of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine,
Let it shine.
I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine,
Let it shine.
I'm gonna let it shine. Hold it high. Let it
Got us a bit tangled.
It's okay, you did a great job there.